Thank you, Tim, and thank you for the opportunity to address the Share Cafe audience. Yes, next slide, please. Usual disclaimer, we'll skip over. So, as Tim introduced the business, we're a heat exchange specialist, best thought of as a designer, manufacturer and importer of heat exchangers, and we use the word heat exchanger. You could substitute radiators, but heat exchanger incorporates the broader range of products that we deal with. We break the business into two key segments, aftermarket and original equipment. Both contribute equally, 50-50 to the revenue line. The aftermarket model can best be thought of as a stock and sell model. We do manufacture products for the industrial aftermarket in copper, brass and aluminium, but it's largely a stock and sell model. And that aftermarket operations occurs in both Australia and New Zealand. In terms of the OE segment, it is really more of a make-to-order model. We focus on solutions to the customers. We manufacture, of course, but really the value add is in coming up with innovative, engineered, customized solutions to customers' particular heat exchange issues. So it's a lower volume, higher value production model. And the customer focus there is global. So we have manufacturing facilities supporting the OE operations in both Australia and Thailand. Next slide, please. We just delve into the aftermarket key features. So the tile on the left-hand side there, we have an extensive and growing range of other automotive service parts. So whilst radiators is our cornerstone, we're growing dramatically our range of other automotive service parts. So brakes, shock absorbers, water pumps, ignition coils, starter motors, alternators, whole range of parts involved in servicing passenger type vehicles, and that's growing rapidly for us. We have also our cornerstone is our radiators program in the aftermarket. Adrad is recognised for having the most extensive quality range of radiators in Australia, and that remains an important cornerstone for us. In terms of our customer base, it's very broad. 90% of our sales come from trade customers, so general mechanics, traditional radiator repairers, and also importantly our Adrad franchise, which we own and operate. And 10% of our sales come from wholesale. So we're predominantly servicing the trade and have a very broad customer base. And also our aftermarket operations are supported by a well-developed online selling platform. Some 60% of our sales come from online. Next slide, please. Just moving over to the OE segment. This is a bit of a busy slide, but it does encapsulate our OE operations really well. We break OE into two key segments, mobile and stationary. Mobile, we further break down to on-highway, off-highway and rail. You can see our key customers there in the middle. So Kenworth Trucks, a very major customer for us. In the off-highway segment, Caterpillar Underground Mining and Hitachi Construction Machinery. So these are underground mining vehicles in the case of Caterpillar, and very heavy dump trucks and excavators for Hitachi. And in the rail segment, it's also important to us, Alstom and CRRC. So we provide the engine cooling, which are rooftop mounted packages for all the velocity trains that you see going around the tracks in Victoria. In the stationary segment, we produce these large products. You can see there, up to 12 metres long, horizontal radiators with all the steelwork surrounding them, used in remote locations, mining sites, Pacific Islands, wherever diesel or gas-fired engines are used for power generation. The cooling packages, we have a big say in those cooling package developments. And on the right-hand side there, this is a gen set, a skid-mounted gen set, which are used for a multitude of applications. But more recently, there's a lot of focus around data centres, which is a growing demand both in Australia and globally, and we provide a lot of support for that sector. Next slide, please. And just on Kenworth, I mentioned before as a key customer. Just last week, we were awarded the Kenworth Supplier of the Year for 2022. That's a very prestigious award within the industry and a terrific event. Kenworth, our association with Kenworth goes back to 1974 when they first commenced manufacturing trucks in Australia at Bayswater, east of Melbourne. And we've serviced them ever since then. So Kenworth hold probably about 25% of the heavy truck market in Australia. Next slide, please. In terms of our distribution footprint, we have some 16 sales warehouses around Australia and New Zealand, all the major capital cities and larger regional centres. We also have a manufacturing operation in Thailand and New Zealand. So a strong footprint, and I've just included our half-year financial information there for information on the right. Next slide, please. We look at our key strengths of the group. Certainly our innovative skills, our design and engineering skills are a real differentiator, particularly in the OE segment, and reputation for quality. That crosses both segments, both Adrad in the aftermarket and Air Radiators, our brand in the OE segment, are highly regarded and have very strong reputations for quality and service. Our brands I just mentioned, Adrad and Natrad, are the key brands in the aftermarket that we utilise, and Air Radiators is the brand in the OE segment, which is globally recognised. Our low-cost manufacturing capabilities, we've been building up a company-owned facility. It was purpose-built some years ago in Thailand. It's in fact being extended now. We're growing that business and that facility is expanding. And it's becoming a very important part of our operations as we move forward. Our broad range of customers I mentioned before, which includes a portfolio of a number of blue chip corporates, and we have very long-term customer relationships. So Caterpillar, 30+ years, Kenworth, 45 odd years. Our customers are very sticky. Once we get a customer, we tend to have a very long-term relationships in both the OE segment and aftermarket. And like most successful businesses, our people, importantly, the knowledge and dedication, commitment of our people, and the local customer relationships that they build are fundamental to the business's success. Next slide, please. Just trying to pick up on some of the key growth initiatives that are in play currently. If we look at 1 o'clock there up the top right, low-cost production facility in Thailand, I mentioned that's becoming important. That enables us to transition high-volume production from Australia to Thailand. Acquisitions are always on our radar. Growth in the customer base in the aftermarket is particularly important. We have some 8,000 mechanics as accounts, and there are something like 23,000 in Australia. So we're aggressively growing the number of customers in the aftermarket space. Expansion into Southeast Asia. So as well as our company-owned factory in Thailand, we, over the last 12 months, have established a second factory focusing on the power generation segment for the Southeast Asian region. So we're hoping to replicate the success and capability that we've had in Australia in that important emerging market of Southeast Asia. Product extension of the product range in the aftermarket is a very important initiative that I referred to earlier. And so the more products in the aftermarket coupled with more customers is a real good growth scenario for the business. And distribution footprint is being increased to accommodate that growth that we're experiencing. Next slide, please. Just tried to pick up on a couple of emerging interesting opportunities for the group. Decarbonisation and a move to lower emissions through the replacement of internal combustion engines with electric motors and hydrogen fuel cells is well underway in the mining and heavy vehicle industry. Those power sources have their own complications in terms of heat exchanger needs, and our OE team are well engaged in developing heat exchangers appropriate for these new sort of power sources. And I've just got a picture there of a large mine haul truck, which is something that we're working on now in terms of providing the heat exchangers to support hydrogen fuel cells being utilised in that development. And on the right-hand side there, product technology. It's a picture of a single aluminium tube that we call Alufin that we've developed over the last couple of years and commercialised. And on the lower picture is the tubes assembled into a radiator pack, if you like, and you might be able to notice there's a rubber grommet at the top, which helps alleviate the thermal shock that radiators, heat exchangers suffer and overcome some of the durability problems. So the traditional materials for radiators in the heavy vehicle sector have been copper and brass. The material cost of copper and brass in recent years has lifted dramatically. It's now something like 4 times the cost of aluminium. And as such, the mining and construction industry are now looking more and more towards aluminium as a preferred medium for the heat exchangers. The challenge there is how you get the durability and the serviceability of the radiator up. Copper, brass and radiators traditionally very serviceable, very durable, aluminium not so. We've been able to achieve durability with this fin tube, and it is being trialled in some very large applications. So we're at the forefront of that. Next slide, please. And just in terms of key takeaways, I think you hopefully can see that Adrad has a very extensive history as a profitable, growing, diversified business with a very broad customer base. And with that customer base, there is a lot of long-term blue chip customer relationships. So I think these are key strengths of the group. And also, as you can see from that last slide, we're already early engagers in the design and manufacture of innovative heat exchangers to support the industry as it moves towards zero emissions. Thank you, Tim.
Thanks, Tom. Really interesting business. When you talk about innovation, obviously you're seeing the movement towards electric vehicles. How does that affect your business?
Yeah, so 2 aspects to that. If you look at the 2 segments, the OE that I just touched on at the end there, you can see that we're actually an early mover in terms of being engaged in the design and manufacture of heat exchangers for hydrogen fuel cells and electrification. So heat exchangers are going to be required. In fact, it's an opportunity emerging in the OE segment that demands on the heat exchangers from hydrogen fuel cells are going to be even higher than was the case with internal combustion engines, because not so much energy is going out as emissions, of course. It's either going into useful energy or into the traction or into the heat exchanger to be dealt with. So a good story there. On the aftermarket side, passenger vehicles, well, clearly there's a strong trend towards moving to electrification. The car park in Australia, there's some 20 million vehicles. The average age is about 10.5 years of that car park. And at this stage, there are about 100,000 electric vehicles. And I think I heard the other day, it's great. The current take-up rate's about 8%. So clearly the yearly take-up rate will increase. But the car park has got decades of internal combustion engines that will be there. And in any event, electric vehicles still have air conditioning systems. They still have cooling requirements, heat exchangers to get the batteries at optimum temperatures. And so life goes on. Interestingly, in the mining sector, with our big stationary products that we saw there, which service gas and diesel engines, even where solar and wind is being used more and more for power generation in remote sites, inevitably the gas engines are being installed to provide the backup supply. Because, as they say, when the wind don't blow and the sun don't shine, the operations still have to continue.
And when you talk about innovation, is the idea driven by your client base? I mean, you work with Kenworth for 45 years. Do they come to you or do you go to them?
Look, it's a combination of both. We're very immersed and integrated with the Kenworth engineering team, our engineers, and always working on the next generation. And clearly we're very focused on the transition that is going to occur. We have prototypes in the field to support different types of energy solutions for heavy vehicles, and I think we're very proud of our engineering team as to where we are in that piece of the puzzle.
And the business model also appears to be quite defensive, given you're kind of dealing with kind of critical infrastructure, if you like. Do you see your business model being quite defensive in that regard?
Yes, it is. It is. It's very solid, stable. I mean, we've got a very addressable, recurring customer base, which is a real strength of the group. I think our expansion opportunities and growth opportunities, certainly through Southeast Asia, we see significant opportunity, and we're already well immersed in there and have capability. And there is certainly potential for us to enter the North American market into niche fields in the future.
I was going to ask you about that. And so why the focus on Thailand? Is that purely because of its exposure, obviously, to Southeast Asia?
Yeah, look, like a lot of businesses, we recognise the need to have a low-cost, manufacturing capability, and Thailand is ideal from Australia's perspective. It's a relatively easy commute to Thailand. We like the whole legal system that applies there. Suits us. It is really a good base type. It's a good workforce built around the automotive industry that fits neatly with the skill sets that we require, and the engineering, of course, that go with that. So a lot of factors in favour of Thailand as opposed to some of the other low cost producing countries.
And you touched on the United States. Where does that fit in the equation?
Yeah, look, we're dealing with the multinationals, the Caterpillars, the Kenworths, and businesses of that ilk already. They're long-term customers of us, so we have strong relationships already with their head offices in America, North America. I think there are opportunities for us to have an on-the-ground presence into the future, to pick out some niche opportunities in this very heavy sector. You can see that Adrad's focus is primarily in the ultra heavy end of the market, 500 horsepower and above type engines.
Dom, that's all we have time for. Thanks for your time, and have a nice weekend.
Thank you, Tim.